After the end of World War II, the world was split into two, East and West. This marked the beginning of the era called the Cold War.
These are the first words we see in Metal Gear Solid 3, once more raising themes of war, battle and history. Up until this moment we've seen games from Metal Gear franchise in the right chronological order. We could witness how again and again Solid Snake had to fight back against circumstances and forces of antagonism in order to protect what he thinks is important. But all those circumstances, people he met and facts he could find had something in common. Big Boss, one of the most famous and strongest mercenaries of all time and a personal mentor of Solid Snake himself. In this game, this story goes back in time to the point where the whole story started. Today we'll be talking about Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. The game was released in November 2004 in North America, December in Japan, March 2005 in Europe and Australasia. As we all remember from the previous video, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty was a huge breakthrough in the technical aspect, but at the same time, general feedback showed that Hideo Kojima and his team overdid with the overall plot presentation a little bit. As a result, MGS3 was sold almost twice worse than MGS2, only 4 million copies, but you cannot say that this is a bad game by all means. Of course there are and will be a lot of people who like and even adore MGS2 for its complexity. But that game left a few major questions. Who are the Patriots? Is Vamp immortal? Who is Olga's child? Is it true that Liquid's hand took control of Ocelot's mind? If you're new to the series, I strongly recommend you to watch previous videos in the series or even play these games yourself if you still haven't done it yet. Instead of continuing the plot, Kojima decided to go back in time and not only to give us another playable character again, but also show us the first episode in the Metal Gear series. Chronologically, this game takes place even before the events of Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake on MSX. And this whole game is dedicated to showing us who Naked Snake, further known as Big Boss, is. His character, motivation, attitude, and what actually led him to the path we're all aware of. At first, Metal Gear Solid 3 was supposed to be released on PlayStation 3, because some technical limitations didn't allow Kojima and his team to fulfill all his ambitions, at least at first. But the release of PlayStation 3 was not so determined and it was decided to release the game on PlayStation 2. His ambitions were really high. He decided to let people play in a half-open world. Of course, such an explanation sounds like an immersive simulator like Dishonored or Prey, but not so complex, of course. Well, generally it's a linear game, but there were several possibilities to pass through segments. Besides, players had to pay extra attention and interact with the environment. The game has become much deeper with more complex combat, more gadgets suitable for 1964. We'll discuss all new mechanics, features and possibilities slightly later. For now, let's dive into the plot and get to know the main characters better. This time we're playing as another Snake. Naked Snake, a special member of the CIA Forces Unit Fox, which is not completely approved and acclaimed by the government. The genetic father of already known Solid, Liquid and Solidus snakes. Again, no questions why they look so much alike. Besides, this time it's really simple to identify Naked Snake with Solid Snake since they look so much alike. His attitude and behavior though is much lighter. He's not as dark as Solid Snake and doesn't have a dramatic story, yet. He seems like a nice guy but will turn into a villain in some perspective, and it makes you wonder what experience will turn him into the best and well-known mercenary in the world. Again, Kojima manages to intertwine his own vision of a game with real political movements in the world, Caribbean crisis, threats of nuclear war, and President Kennedy's assassination. During this mission, the Fox Squad has a chance to prove themselves to the government and be officially reorganized into a unit. At first, their mission seems quite easy. All they need to do is to land in Tajikistan and capture a certain scientist, Sokolov, who specializes in rocket engineering. At first, he was working in the USSR rocket program and was heavily responsible for the first launch of a man into space. His full name is Nikolai Stepanovich Sokolov, and the prototype for this character was probably a Russian scientist Andrei Illarionovich Sokolov, who created a great number of works dedicated to rocket and missile engineering, took part in the creation of the first satellite, and scientifically proved the proper space to build Baikonur Cosmodrome. After some time, Sokolov in the game realized that he knows too much and his knowledge can be used in order to create massive and homicidal weapons, and asked the United States of America for shelter in 1962. The USA agreed and gave shelter to him and his wife with a child. As a result, Sokolov and his family were moved to the USA. Unfortunately, after some time later, the Cuban Missile Crisis, also known as the October Crisis in 1962, struck. I'm not going to tell you every aspect here, I'll explain you only important parts. As a result, in order to solve confrontation peacefully, the USSR, among other demands, insisted on taking Sokolov back. In order to avoid nuclear war, the USA agreed but decided to interfere and save the scientists some time later. Sokolov was taken back to the research facility and forced to continue working on the weapon under KGB supervision. For those who may not know, KGB is a Committee for State Security. It was the main security agency for the Soviet Union up until its breakup in 1991. For half of a year, Soviets been conducting nuclear tests, and in order to perform another test, the heads decided to move Sokolov to another test field. Usually such moves are accompanied by lower protection, so it's the best chance to get Sokolov back. Snake lands in Selenoyarsk, a non-existing city somewhere in Tajikistan. By the way, if you choose I like MGS1 at the beginning of the game, you'll see Snake right away. But if you choose I like MGS2 in the beginning, you'll see Raiden, or better to say his mask. To tell you the truth, it can be confusing to see Raiden in this game several times, but it's purely a reference.
Oh, and Snake,
Yeah,
the crew isn't watching anymore. You can take off the disguise now.
good idea. This isn't right. Time for the snake to shed his skin.
Naked Snake is a great name here because it reflects the character and the game mechanics as well. Weapons, equipment and food must be found on site since there aren't supposed to be any American soldiers in Russia. It's a violation of International Convention of Warfare. This is another vision of stealth missions, although Snake still has some gadgets and weapons with him, but we'll talk about them after the plot. Our support team this time consists of Major Zero, Paramedic, who would definitely make a great career on YouTube criticizing movies, and the boss, Snake's mentor and teacher. She's one of the most important people to Snake, although they haven't seen each other for 5 years. She's an excellent soldier, her battle experience is outrageous, and she even can tell that Snake lost his way judging by his voice only. But we'll be able to see her excellent abilities several times in the game later.
It's been 5 years, 72 days, and 18 hours.
You've lost weight.
You can tell just by the sound of my voice.
Of course I can. I know all about you.
By the way, the boss concept was supposed to have a tattoo of a snake on her chest, so when she fires a gun, her chest would shake, giving the impression of a laughing snake. So people would talk about her. The last thing you see before your death is a laughing snake. But it was rejected after all. Snake reaches the place where Sokolov is held and releases him. By the way, it's possible to kill Sokolov during the mission, creating a so-called time paradox. Such a thing may happen several times in the game in various situations that happen to contradict future we already know.
Snake, you can't do that. The future will change. You'll create a time paradox.
Although Sokolov is concerned about a certain Volgin of GRU with the code name Thunderbolt, he is a member of Army's extremist faction and wants power. GRU is the military intelligence service of the Soviet Union. Let these small video essays to be a bit educational. Besides, it's much easier to understand some episodes of the plot if you know such things and organizations. But don't worry, this one is the last in this video. I don't really want to bother you with too many names, so I'll just tell you that Volgin, Thunderbolt, wanted to overthrow Khrushchev, an extremely important statesman and figure of that time, and let Brezhnev and Kosygin take his place. Volgin also possesses different bases, much like we are at now, to test weapons. Besides, he wants to take control of a secret weapon that's held there. As you've probably guessed, it's another, almost the first version of Metal Gear. Here's Snake and Sokolov meet, Revolver Ocelot, and oh, I do love this introduction.
That's Major Ocelot to you. And don't you forget it.
Kojima confessed that Ocelot is a manifestation of all Wild West characters with this self-confident attitude and his tricks with his guns. And if before this element was not so vivid, now it's much more obvious. Even the music here gives you the sense of Wild West.
You're from the Ocelot unit of Spetsnaz. What's a GRU soldier doing here?
I sincerely enjoy how Ocelot and Snake behave here. They mutually admire each other, although they are enemies. They test each other's nerves, senses, abilities, and knowledge. They definitely have something to learn from each other. In the end, Snake manages to fight back Ocelot and his men, and we see this fancy gesture from Ocelot. You're pretty good.
Possible. You ejected the first bullet by hand, didn't you? I see what you were trying to do. But testing a technique you've only heard about in the middle of battle wasn't very smart. You were asking to have your gun jam on you. Besides, I don't think you're cut out for an automatic in the first place. You tend to twist your elbow to absorb the recoil. That's more of a revolver technique.
You filthy American dog!
But that was some fancy shooting. You're pretty good.
Pretty good.
Snake and Sokolov manage to escape and notice the thing Volgin Thunderbolt will probably be trying to steal, another Metal Gear, the Shagohod. But it's not fully complete since they have to complete Phase 2, the weapon's true form. That will probably lead to the end of the Cold War, and the beginning of a world one. It's not possible to finish it without Sokolov though. On our way we meet the boss, and at first we think that she's come here to help us, but it turns the opposite way. A swarm of hornets attacks our heroes and kidnaps Sokolov. For the first time we see Volgin and realize why he was called Thunderbolt. We are truly shocked to find out that the boss betrayed us and joined Volgin's unit, along with some presents called recoilless nuclear warheads, Davy Crockett. Snake tries to fight back, but the boss is much stronger than he is. She breaks some of his bones and throws him into the river below. I like this staging in this scene, and through some small details we see how boss is actually concerned, although she behaves really tough.
Drift away. My place is with them now.
Snake wakes up in the bank of the river and manages to provide first aid to himself, which is met for the first time in the series. Again, all mechanics and features after the plot. Major Zero tells Snake that they will drop a recovery balloon. And although this fact may not seem so significant, it actually is, because of the events that will happen later. Meanwhile, Shagohod is being carried away by Volgin, Ocelot, and a certain captured woman, who happens to be Sokolov's assistant. And Volgin decides to test the new toy he got from the boss, although Ocelot is against it since their countrymen are still there. But Volgin doesn't care because in the eyes of publicity it will be the American defector, the boss, and not him. In other words, he sets her up.
Thanks to the boss and her cobras, I have both Sokolov and the Shagohod. We have no further use for Sokolov's research facility. I think it's time I gave this marvelous new toy a try.
Colonel, even if they are our enemies, they're still our countrymen.
But it won't be me that pulled the trigger. It'll be our friend, the American defector.
You're going to nuke your fellow Russians?
for the Alamo.
Colonel!
The introduction of this game is clearly inspired by the most famous secret agent, James Bond, or Agent 007. You'll be able to see a lot of great references to these movies and these characters. Like a good-looking man meets a good-looking woman and they're both secret agents and all that stuff. Besides, there are even direct references to James Bond. The music also has vibes of some spy-ish atmosphere showing camouflage in Snake's majority of the time.
But you're so supreme.
The narration jumps 1 week forward. We're told that Snake is now considered a traitor, but the Fox unit has a chance to purify its name. But how did everyone know that there were Americans in the first place? That's all because of that aircraft that was noticed by Russians' radars during the nuclear strike. The aircraft that was sent to rescue Snake. But still, everyone is sure now that the person who decided to launch the bomb was the boss. So now Snake and his unit have to prove their innocence and prevent the start of another war by completing 3 conditions. Rescue Sokolov, the man responsible for the Shagohod creation. Find out what's happened to Shagohod, an early prototype of Metal Gear, and eliminate the boss, a worldwide known hero of the Second World War and one of the highly praised soldiers in the world. The operation is called Snake Eater. In order to achieve these goals, Major Zero tells us about Adam and Eva. Snake will have to meet them and have support. Speaking about support, now the boss's place is taken by Mr. Sigint, also known as Donald Anderson. You may ask yourself where you might hear that name. He will become the DARPA chief in the future and will play his role in Shadow Moses incident in Metal Gear Solid. On his way to meet Adam, Snake meets the boss, where she once again shows her supremacy.
Go home. If we meet again, I'll kill you. Now, go home.
Still, Snake continues his mission and meets Eva, although they were supposed to be Adam. Eva is a very seductive young lady who's certainly interested in helping Naked Snake. By the way, she doesn't even try to hide that she's trying to seduce Naked Snake, if you know what I mean. Sexual tension rises, but Snake has to take a break. In the morning, Snake realizes that they've been surrounded by Ocelot and his men. Once again, we can see the chemistry between Ocelot and Snake. They enjoy being rivals, but they don't actually want to kill each other. They just want to test each other's limits and skills.
6 shots. That thing only carries 6 shots. The Makarov carries 8. You have to get a feel for how many you have left. This is a high-class weapon. It's not meant for shooting people.
Damn!
Even when they have a chance to kill Ocelot, Snake stops Eva from doing it.
This isn't over yet.
Don't.
Why?
He's still young.
After some wandering, we meet Ocelot again and have to duel him. We can use the environment in order to reduce his health and stamina, but your aim is your best helper here. While fighting, you'll be able to consult with your supporter Sigint in order to find out more information about the guns Ocelot's holding and how to beat him. Swarms of hornets show up and our heroes have to retreat. Snake jumps into the river and finds himself in a cave. We meet the Pain, that guy who controls hornets. Actually, this boss fight is not something unique in my opinion. You just hide underwater and shoot your enemy when he's not covered in bees.
The Pain! The Pain!
After defeating him, we see Sokolov under custody. We learn that the woman we saw earlier in the helicopter was Tanya, or Tatiana, Sokolov's helper. She has a strong resemblance with another woman we know, don't you think? After eliminating the guards, Snake enters the laboratory and finds a certain man called Alexander Leonovich Granin, who used to be one of the most famous and important scientists in the USSR, who created dozens of different weapons.
I am Alexander Leonovich Granin. A man of some importance, if I do say so myself.
He shows Snake the blueprints of a revolutionary bipedal battle machine called Metal Gear. But it turns out that Granin's project was terminated and Philosopher's legacy was handed over to Sokolov. Here for the first time we hear about a certain philosopher's legacy. And this legacy is a big, well, better to say enormous sum of money that ended up in the hands of Volgin's father. This legacy allows to create new weapons and execute tests without the support of any government. Snake also learns that the final test with Shagohod will be conducted the following day in the weapons factory and the main base of Volgin called the main fortress of Grozny Grad. Granin also wants the Shagohod to be destroyed and decides to help Snake. And although the fortress seems impenetrable, Granin claims that there is a tunnel under the fortress that will allow Snake to enter the base. On his way to the mountains where entrance into the tunnel is situated, Snake meets the Fear, and apparently he's the master of eating yogurts without a spoon. The Fear uses a stealth camouflage, but Snake can use his gadgets in order to defeat him. Eva contacts us and informs that the entrance to the tunnel is sealed and Snake needs a key to get in. She offers to meet, but first Snake has to fight through the end.
There's something else I've got to tell you.
Now what?
I heard that one of the Cobras is waiting for you in the jungle at the foot of the mountains. He's a legendary sniper called the End.
Yeah, I've seen him before. That ridiculously old guy, right?
Don't underestimate him. He's known as the father of modern sniping.
By the way, you can kill the End even earlier in the game. In this case, this boss fight will be replaced with Ocelot unit, and if you only injure him, he will have less health during your battle. Or, if you save your game before the fight with the End and come back a couple of weeks later, the End will die from his old age.
Drop your weapon. Drop your weapon! Major, I found the End. He's dead.
What the hell happened?
Maybe it was from old age.
You mean he kicked the bucket in the middle of a battle?
Maybe.
Well, Snake, the victory is yours.
No, I don't think so.
What do you mean?
It was his dying wish to fight me, but I disappointed him.
Snake, listen to yourself. This is a mission. It's not a game, it's not a sport. You think you're competing for the gold at Tokyo or something?
I guess you're right.
Just focus on completing the mission.
Yes, sir.
If it's too hard for you to find the End, you may notice his parrot on a level, and after catching and releasing it, it will fly towards his master, revealing his current position. Snake finds Eva. She tells Snake that Shagohod is about to be completed soon and gives us the key to the tunnel. In order to get into the lab, Eva offers to disguise himself as Ivan Raidenovich Rykov. As obvious as it is, this one is a reference to Raiden. But this is just a reference, just like at the beginning of the game, and has no connection to real Raiden. On his way to the laboratory, Snake meets the Fury, another boss. His origin is quite simple. After coming back from space, he wanted to see the world in flames. And the flamethrower he's equipped with generously helps him with that. But again, Snake deals with him and manages to infiltrate the laboratory. Snake finds the real Ivan Raidenovich Rykov, takes him out, and puts on his clothes. Snake finds Sokolov and sees that he gives Eva something that looks like an audio tape. This is all of the experimental data on the Shagohod. Instead, she asks him to tell her about the philosopher's legacy, but Sokolov replies that no one but Volgin knows about this legacy. Besides, Shagohod is almost complete. Now it's almost ready to launch a nuclear weapon from any point onto the United States. And Volgin will be able to perform massive production based on this prototype. In order to prevent that and to save the world from a nuclear war, Snake decides to destroy the Shagohod and the whole facility along with it. Then Sokolov starts a monologue about a theme I've never really thought about. All those scientists of past and present, do they really want to create weapons to kill people? Sokolov wanted to build space rockets, explore space, but instead he was made to create weapons of mass destruction. You can call me narrow-minded, but I honestly haven't even thought about it. We're all people and we all have something and someone we care about. And if you're lucky, you have someone out there who cares about you. At war, if you don't do your job, you'll be destroyed and someone else will take your place. So, does it make any difference for such people? You're screwed up this way or another. Volgin exposes us in a very specific manner. Have you noticed how many men around want to touch Raiden character slightly below his waist? But the boss interferes and captures Snake.
It's gonna rub off on you. And then you'll lose sight of who you really are. Stay out of this!
In the process of interrogation,
it's no use. He's not going to talk. He's been trained not to break. Trained by me.
Volgin mentions that the philosopher's legacy is in his possession right there, in the underground vault of Groznygrad. During this torture, Volgin demands Boss to prove her loyalty and asks her to cut out Snake's eyes. But Eva, protects Snake. In the end, Snake still loses his right eye. It gets shot by Ocelot.
I want to test her. I'll let this be the judge.
Do as you like.
Here we go.
After this mess, Eva tells us that she's prepared an escape route. Meanwhile, Snake will be kept in a cell. And there are several ways even to solve this problem. You can use your codec to open the gate. There is a possibility to get out of the cell if you throw some food at the guard 3 times. He will confess that his name is Johnny, just like Snake. This one is an obvious reference to Johnny in previous MGS games. Johnny himself will give Snake his cigarettes back, but this is actually a gadget with sleeping gas in it.
Here. I filched them from your equipment when the Colonel wasn't looking.
Besides, if you throw some rotten food at him, he'll run to the toilet just like previous Johnny in MGS and MGS2.
Oh, my stomach. Oh, I can't hold it anymore. It's coming out. Here it comes. Still going. Wow. I didn't think that was possible. That's a record. Ugh. Will this even flush?
You can even rotate the model of Snake in Survive menu and he will puke. Did you even know that you could do that? I'm saying all that just to show how such a small and simple episode provides you with so many options to pass through this segment.
Oh, jeez. Did you throw up?
Snake escapes the laboratory and gracefully jumps into the river. On his way, Snake will witness visions about fire, rain, and people he killed. I mean, literally, all people you, as player, killed in this game, the more ghosts here will attack you. This is the Sorrow's doing. He's been present in this game all along because he possesses powers of a medium, although he died 2 years ago. All you have to do here is to walk through the river and die. And it may take several times before you realize that in order to continue you have to take a revival pill. Oh, I haven't told you about this one yet. In this game you can fake your own death. In order to bring Snake back to life, you should take another pill that revives your protagonist. Eva contacts Snake and tells that she knows the perfect place for their meeting, in a cave down the river. And, well, you know.
Snake? Thank you, Snake. I'll be your eyes from now on. Snake, come here for a minute. There's something in here. It's so hard.
Oh, when did it get like that?
Hold still. Let me do it.
You know, I've been trained to do this kind of thing myself.
Here, lift up your hips.
Like this?
Yeah,
You're pretty good at that.
yeah. Everybody tells me that. There! A transmitter.
Yeah, that's right, Eva finds a transmitter. What did you think? Although their sexual tension is at its peak. Eva and Snake decide to split up and plant bombs into Shagohod and the facility itself. In the process, Eva and Snake get captured. It turns out that Eva was actually found in the underground vault sneaking around. And Volgin, being a good boy and just like all villains of the 60s, shows them the Philosopher's Legacy and explains to them what it is. Or the microfilm that contains all necessary information about the legacy, to be specific. Well, you know, before you die, I'll tell you all my plans.
What is the Philosopher's Legacy?
Very well. I'll explain it before I kill you.
This sum of money consisted of finances from 3 great countries, America, China, and the Soviet Union. This money was to be used in order to provide funding for research and military operations to overcome crisis and war. After the war, this legacy was divided back between these 3 countries. Volgin's father was one of the men in charge of managing the Philosopher's Legacy, divided it into several parts and performed various transactions in order to help the Soviet Union to have the whole sum of money. All of those transactions are recorded on this microfilm, and Volgin inherited this microfilm along with the legacy. Another battle begins, this time with Volgin. And what a surprise, Ocelot even decides to help us. He gives us a gun and a knife. The best tactic against Volgin is to use CQC and avoid his attacks, obviously, but since the bomb were planted, we don't have too much time. In short, Snake and Eva managed to escape and destroy the Shagohod at the facility. In the end, we have one last boss to fight. The boss. Just like at the beginning of the game, she shares her thoughts about what it means to be soldiers. That there is no absolute friend and absolute enemy. She tells us about the history and how easily it can sometimes be manipulated. She tells the story of the first Earth satellite and the first human in space, and how she was chosen as a test subject secretly sent into the space. About how all these politics, economics, and the arms race are meaningless arenas for competition. And honestly, I cannot say anything here and stay silent at the same time. Just think about this. In the last century, humanity lived through 2 world wars, Cold War, and nuclear strikes. Was it really necessary? Wasn't there any other way? I don't really know. But aren't people just tired of fighting? Tired of killing and blood? In the end, one has to kill another. There will be only one boss fight left. Snake has to kill a person who's been a friend, a teacher, a mentor, a mother to him. Another extremely strong episode. And it will receive even more value in the end. And Snake completes his mission. Before her death, The boss gives him the microfilm with Philosopher's Legacy she received from Volgin.
Ready to go, Snake?
Snake and Eva try to escape on the plane that was prepared by Eva earlier, but Ocelot is not done with them yet. Luckily, it doesn't last long. The level of direction here is outstanding in comparison with games of that time. Just look at this. This way or another, Ocelot decides to part friends and jumps off the plane. Snake and Eva manage to escape. After an extremely not passionate night, Snake is left alone with an audio tape from Eva, where she reveals all her secrets. First of all, she confesses that she wasn't sent by KGB. She was an agent of the Republic of China. After all, she didn't answer the question, who are the Patriots? Besides, she won a jackpot. Not only did she steal the Philosopher's Legacy, but she stole the nuclear missile launch data from the Shagohod. The only one she couldn't fool was the boss. Besides, they knew each other from a long time ago, and the boss made Eva promise her that she wouldn't kill Snake and would send him a message. The boss didn't betray her country. She sacrificed herself. She let Snake kill her and finish his mission. For everyone around, the boss will be remembered as a traitor. No one will know how much pain she had to endure, how many lies she had to tell, and how many people she had to kill. How her child, Ocelot by the way, was taken away from her right on the battlefield. How she had to kill the person she loved, the sorrow. I think the boss represents the whole situation about unnamed heroes of war. There were probably many noble people who died for their countries, but will be forever buried under a thick layer of dust and ash lost in the oblivion. She let Snake kill her and finish his mission and stop the beginning of a nuclear war. In such an unstable political situation, the nuclear strike from another country, people of which were not supposed to be there, could start a nuclear war. But the boss didn't allow that to happen and let everyone save the Kuo status. For everyone who says that games are just a childish way to kill time, let them play this game. It definitely has something to say and questions to ask. I do enjoy games which make you look at things at a different angle, or make you ask questions you never would ask yourself otherwise. Although this is all a fiction and helps you open your eyes toward the objective reality. Yes, it may sound silly and not for all people, but I do really think this way. And the worst part of all this, since the boss was never a traitor, the heads knew about it all along. It was the ultimate order. Such hypocrisy.
History will never know what she did. No one will ever learn the truth. Her story, her debriefing, will endure only in your heart. Everything she did for her country. She sacrificed her life and her honor for her native land. She was a real hero.
In the end, Fox gets officially acclaimed by the government, but in 1970, Major Zero disbands Fox. But 1 year later, Naked Snake, aka Big Boss, establishes Foxhound, carrying on the traditions of Major Zero and his Fox unit. Also, the game answers one of the questions that were raised in MGS2. In 1970, the United States accumulates the remainder of the legacy. The US branch of Philosophers changes its name to the Patriots. In 1972, beg your pardon for my pronunciation, Les Enfants Terribles project is complete. The songs of Big Boss are born. But this is another story. In the end, we hear the voice of Revolver Ocelot.
Yes, Grozny Grad and the Granin Research Facility have both been wiped out without a trace. I understand, sir, but they were necessary sacrifices. Yes, the CIA has taken care of the boss themselves.
Turns out that the film Eva supposedly stole was a fake, and the United States has the most part of the money. The KGB, though, may still have part of the legacy. Besides, he speaks about Granning's research about Metal Gear since the Shagohod was destroyed. Besides, it turns out the Ocelot was Adam, Snake was supposed to meet in the beginning, and he's a triple agent.
Of course, I am always at the CIA's disposal, Mr. Director.
That's been the almost complete story about Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Almost complete because I intentionally missed some details that may be not relevant to the plot in my opinion. Still, there probably will be people in the comment section who will be able to reveal some important or interesting details about this game, and I definitely don't mind. The game was very positively acclaimed by both critics and players. Even now it has a very high rating on Metacritic. Many players say that this is their favorite part in Metal Gear series, and I cannot disagree. Even if you played this game as a child or a teenager, it may be interesting to replay it now, with all that knowledge and experience you have behind your back. For now, let's talk about mechanics, since some of them changed dramatically. Right from the opening theme, we noticed that this game clearly has some James Bond vibes. Kojima said that he and his team clearly got some inspiration from there. The chemistry between Snake and Eva also has this feeling that everything is going to end up well, just like in every James Bond movie, until the awful truth strikes. You've probably noticed that the setting is different. Now all the action takes place in Tajikistan or some parts of Siberia. For those who don't know, it doesn't look this way. There are no jungles in Russia, Siberia or Tajikistan at all. I get it, it's a creative interpretation, so why the hell not? At least these signs are better translated than in Rise of the Tomb Raider. Of course, it was hard to get rid of closed and plain rooms and switch your attention to jungles, since there are glass and mirror ridges. It wasn't easy to make Snake's movement look realistic in this environment. Yes, there may be some rare bugs and glitches, but in general, I think that developers made a good work here. Well done. I think the setting was presented in such a way in order to use a brand new camouflage system. You see, in this game players could switch clothes and makeup of Snake in order to blend into the appropriate color patterns of the environment. There is an indicator in the right top of the screen that allows you to monitor how well you can be noticed by your enemies. The closer your numbers are to 100%, the better you're hidden. But if you let guards get closer to you or you draw somebody's attention, you'll be noticed for sure. Combat system was significantly improved. According to the plot, the boss along with Naked Snake developed a so-called CQC, Close Quarters Combat. Sometimes it's much better to knock down your enemies than to kill them. Using this combat system, Snake could throw his enemies down, knock them down by choking, slit one's throat, use enemies as a human shield and even threaten them to get some useful information. In this game, just like in previous ones, Snake has a tranquilizer gun. This time game developers decided to show a different approach, which by the way would fit and look authentic for the era. This tranquilizer gun and some other weapons received silencers that could wear out and had to be replaced. This whole game received the element of survival, since everything you see has a tendency to wear out or run short. The system of health points and healing was changed as well. You see, Snake has two bars this time, health bar and stamina meter. Stamina meter reduces with time based on what actions Snake is performing. For example, if Snake was running upwards, not only would he run slower, but his stamina would run out faster. That's a nice little touch if you ask me. The more stamina you have, the easier it is for Snake to aim, attack and heal himself. Yes, in this game you will rarely be able to use anything that will heal you straight away. Instead of that, you'll have to wait so Snake could regenerate, and it's not some kind of regeneration like Wolverine from X-Men has. Here you'll have to wait for about 5 minutes on the normal level to recover your health from 0 to hero. If your stamina reaches below half, your stomach will start to growl. And this is one of the most interesting innovations of that time in my opinion. Hunting. After killing an animal, it will turn into food, although variations of food recover a different amount of stamina. Besides, with time, Snake will get used to the taste of products, even if he doesn't like it, and will be recovering more and more stamina. The food in your inventory may also rot, but even this food can be used. You can throw this food at dogs, and after eating it, they will not attack you. Poisonous food can also be used, just like in the fight with the fear, but dogs won't eat it.
It's poisoned!
The process of hunting is performed schematically and grotesquely. Besides, I should remind you that this game was released on PlayStation 2, so even the amount of technical possibilities is impressive. In the game you can fill your stamina up by listening to some radio songs. You get the frequencies interrogating some guards. Speaking about frequencies, you can find out different frequencies from the guards in order to discontinue the state of alert or call for the fire support. Besides necessity to eat, Snake had to avoid injuries, obviously. But if Snake encountered enemies, he could get injured. Those injuries could prevent Snake from regaining health and stamina, or even start reducing it. For example, while wandering through the swamp, some leeches could stick onto Snake's body. In order to get rid of them, players had to use cigars to burn them off. If some of Snake's bones were broken, players had to use bandages, use the ointment for burns, and apply stitches for cuts and bullet wounds. This healing process is performed instantly. I mean, you won't have to wait for half of the game when Snake's bones heal or something like that. This resource management is rather tough on high levels, so players had to be extremely careful. The famous Soliton Raider that was presented in MGS and MGS2 was transformed and separated into 3 gadgets. Anti-personnel sensor that vibrates when an enemy approaches you, motion detector which detects only moving objects in a certain radius, which is good for detecting patrols, and active sonar. When you use it, it will light up every living object within a certain area. I mean, every living object, including animals. This was a great solution indeed. Your gadgets are authentic to the time, although they keep the functionality of gadgets of the previous games. It adds more depth into the gameplay by showing new features, and it reflects the time Snake was at that time. All gadgets Snake possesses use batteries, which also run out with time. You don't have to recharge them though, just stop using them, wait for a while, and they will work perfectly afterwards. One more interesting gadget, if it's okay to call it this way, was the pill that could cause artificial death. I already mentioned it. This death could fool your enemies and even some bosses for a while, but if Snake stayed in this position for too long, he could die for real. To prevent that, Snake had a special pill to revive. The staging improved as well. Eva on her bike alone is worth seeing. But at some point, it all became slightly more cartoonish in some cases.
I am the pain.
Some say that it was done on purpose to underline some truly serious moments and make players lull the vigilance. And I cannot disagree, it really works. Right here and now you think that you've completed your mission, and literally 10 minutes later, your perception changes completely. Shyamalan is nervously smoking in the corner. The game smoothly jumps from funny and sometimes even ridiculous moments into serious and intense scenes. Speaking about staging, I cannot forget about music that helps you dive into the atmosphere of espionage action. Harry Gregson Williams, the main composer of the previous game we talked about earlier, received an offer to make another soundtrack, for MGS3 this time. Harry said that he wouldn't do it if there were another oil rig, but he would really consider creating a soundtrack if the game took place in Amazon jungles or something like that. But Kojima had this concept in mind long before this talk, so Harry Gregson Williams took the job. I really like his music. there was another composer from the MGS series, Tapi Iwase. But not so many people know that he got his inspiration for the main themes from Georgy Sviridov, a Russian new romantic composer. Just listen to this. Some people, including Kojima, were not so happy when they found out about it, but nevertheless, I personally do love when creators are able to bring new life and modify forgotten melodies. But still, this melody will not be heard in future games of the series, unfortunately. Just like previous games, this one is full of minor details, but they definitely work on the immersion. For instance, you are able to shoot enemies' limbs and it will be more difficult to use them. They will start shivering as well. Also, after some time, these guards will start healing themselves. You can throw some poisonous food at guards and poison them with it, or capture an animal and throw it at guards. You can put a book on the ground and make guards read it, just like in the previous game. Variety and experiments are great, and it's great for any game. All I have to mention now is that there were several releases of this game. The first one for PS2 consoles. Kojima wanted to use the same camera as in the previous MGS games, but considering the area of action, it didn't look too well, although it could be more convenient in some cases. In HD Collection, you can switch your camera mode on the fly, by the way, by pressing R3, or the right analog stick if that's more convenient to hear. At the end of 2004, as a result of reorganization of Konami, Kojima Productions was born. This studio was still working under the protectorate of Konami, although it still could be called an independent branch, where Kojima could freely create everything he wanted. In 2006, the version called Metal Gear Solid 3 Subsistence was released, where players could find a modern camera, online mode, still very raw but nevertheless, and a secret theater. The secret theater is a mode where you could watch some funny cutscenes with alternative course of the plot.
Snake!
Ocelot!
We're not done yet!
Damn!
Also, Subsistence could be proud to have 2 original Metal Gear games. Not Metal Gear Solid games, but Metal Gear games that were released on MSX at first. 6 years later, the game was ported to Nintendo 3DS. It's hard to say for sure whether it was a good idea or a bad decision, because 3DS is a portable console after all. The camera was not free but fixed, online was removed, some materials were removed, the amount of food was also lowered. This way or another, it was still a playable Metal Gear Solid. Also, you're able to play this game on PS Vita. In 2011-2012, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection was released. The port was performed by Blue Point Games, probably the best studio responsible for ports of games for other platforms. Recent Shadow of the Colossus is their doing, by the way. Just like the previous games, this one has a very concrete and specific theme pointed out by Kojima. The scene, the moment, place and time. How presence at a certain moment of time and place can either turn the world upside down or save it. The boss in this game is a manifestation of this word and theme. This theme can be applied not only to soldiers, although the boss explains to players several times what it means to be a soldier. It can be applied to your own experience and how you should find your own meaning and passion in life. How both body and mind synergize together and give power in the most difficult situations. How point of view, place and time of even uncontrollable events can change everything in the world. Everything is changeable and nothing exists on absolute terms. Today's good can become tomorrow's evil. Today's enemy tomorrow may become your friend, and vice versa. They say that one person cannot change anything, but is it completely true? Looking back to our history, can you sincerely say that one person is just a pawn on the battlefield we call life? Some may say that the boss was a lifeless and careless woman, And on the one hand, I cannot disagree with this statement. So many times I asked myself, why couldn't she simply tell no? This is what being a soldier means, I guess. You cannot disobey the order. You're not allowed to have free will. Only complete and unquestionable dedication to your country and the orders of the rulers. Sometimes there is a job only you can do, a job only you are good at. In my opinion, Snake suppressed the boss not because he managed to defeat her, but because he chose to think with his own mind, fight for what he believes is true, and face the consequences of his actions and decisions. It's been Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. I've told you almost everything I know about this game. Well, probably except the fact that there is a novelization of this one, but anyway. I'm really glad that there are people interested in this kind of stuff, and I'm really thankful to you if you watch this video to the end. If you liked this video, I would really appreciate if you could leave a like, comment and share this video for at least a couple of days. It really helps. Of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do it. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gents. See you in several weeks.